Greetings, everyone. It is GleeCon here once again with another episode of Lore of Warcraft. So stay a while and listen to this one. This is Chapter 9 in the Rise of the Horde. We recently have seen the first orc spilling of Draenei blood, according to this. It's certainly the first by Orgrim, if nothing else. And you could argue it's the first official in this campaign, whether or not you want to include the greater Chronicles story of raids and stuff like that having gone on. All right, here we go. It is easy to understand why so many of my contemporaries prefer to let this history die. Let it sink into oblivion silently, slipping beneath the waters of time until the surface of the lake is once again unruffled, and no one knows of the shame lurking in the depths. I, too, feel that shame, though I was not alive when this occurred. I see it in Drekthar's face as he recounts his part of the tale in a shaking voice. I saw the weight of it on Orgrim Doomhammer. Grommash Hellscream, friend and traitor and friend again, was ravaged by it. But to pretend it did not exist is to forget how dreadful the impact was. To make ourselves into victims rather than claiming our participation in our own destruction. We chose this path, we orcs. We chose it right up until it was too late to turn back. And having made that choice once, we can, with the knowledge that we have of the end of that dark and shameful road, choose not to take it. So I wish to hear the testimony of those who placed one foot in front of the other on a road that spelled near obliteration of our kind. I want to understand why they took each step, what had to happen for it to seem logical and good and right. I want to know this so when I see it unfolding again, I will recognize it. Humans have two sayings that are wise beyond imagining. The first is those who do not learn from history are condemned to repeat it. And the second is know your enemy. I think this is also, in some ways, obviously we're not warlords and we're not heroes in a grand scale. We're all just people living our lives and playing a video game. But I think that we have the same desire as Thrall, which is to look at these stories one foot in front of the other to understand better this game that for most of us has become so much more than a game over the past 20 years, is a place that we spend a lot of our time, and obviously we feel strongly about one way or another. So that's why reading this lore, I think, is well, it's entertaining, but it's also worthwhile. Velen was deep in meditation when Restylon reluctantly approached him. He sat in the central courtyard of the Temple of Karabor, not on the comfortable benches that flanked the rectangular pool, but on the hard stone. The air was filled with the scent of the flowering bushes of the lush garden, and the water murmured softly as it circulated. Trees, their leaves moving in the wind, added their own quiet sounds. It was a tranquil scene, but Valen's attention was inward. Long had the Draenei and the Ner'zhul trusted one another. The luminous beings who so seldom opted to take solid form had been first caretakers of the exiled Eredar, then teachers, and then friends. They had traveled together and beheld many worlds. Each time the Ner'zhul, particularly the one that called itself K'ure, had been instrumental in helping the Draenei flee when the Minari uncovered their hiding place. And each time Kil'jaeden and the monstrous creatures who had once been Eredar had come closer to capturing them. Velen grieved every time he and his people had to depart a world to save themselves, knowing that any beings they left behind would be as changed as the Eredar had been. Kil'jaeden, always eager for more to join the legion he was creating for his Dark Master Sargeras, would overlook no possible recruit. K'ure, as sorrowful as Velen, grieved with him, but it spoke in Velen's mind with the unalterable logic that Kil'jaeden, Archimonde, and Sargeras would have destroyed another world in the same amount of time. All worlds, all beings, all races were horrifically equal in Sargeras' eyes. They all needed to be obliterated in a ghastly festival of carnage and fire. Velen's death at the hands of beings who had once been his dearest friends would save none of the luckless innocents, whereas his life possibly would one day.
How,
Velen had raged once,
how is my life more important, worthier than theirs?
The gathering is slow, Kore had admitted, but it continues. There are other Ner'zhul like me, who are reaching out to the younger races. When they are ready, they will all be brought together. Sargeras will eventually fall beneath the will of those who yet believe in what is good and true and harmonious, what is the timeless balance of this universe. Velen had no choice but to either believe this being who had become his friend, or turn his back on those who had trusted him and be twisted into Minari. He chose to believe. Now, though, he was confused. The orcs had begun attacking lone hunting parties. There seemed to be no reason for the aggression. None of the shaken guards to whom Velen had spoken reported anything out of the ordinary, and yet 3 hunting parties had been killed down to the last Draenei. Restalon, who had investigated the slaughter, had reported that the bodies were not simply killed, they were butchered. So Velen had come to the temple, created in the earliest years of the Draenei on this world. Here, surrounded by 4 of the 7 Atamal crystals that had sprung into being so very long ago, he could hear the faint voice of his friend in his mind, but as yet Kore had no answers for him. There would be no flight for them this time if things went wrong. Kore was dying, trapped in the very vessel that it had provided when it had crashed into this world 200 years past.
Great Prophet,
said Restalon, his voice soft and weary-sounding.
There has been another attack.
Slowly Velen opened his ancient eyes and regarded his friend sorrowfully.
I know, he said. I felt it.
Restalon ran a thick-fingered hand through his black hair.
What do we do? Each attack seems more violent than the last. Examination of the injuries done to the bodies seems to indicate that they are improving their weapons.
Velen sighed deeply and shook his head. The white braids swung gently with the movement.
I cannot hear Kore,
he said quietly.
At least not as well as I used to. I fear its time is not much longer.
Restalon lowered his gaze, pain evident on his face. The Ner'zhul had effectively sacrificed itself for them. All the Draenei knew and understood this. Strange and mysterious as the being was, the Draenei had grown to care for it. It had been trapped and slowly dying for 2 centuries. Somehow Velen had thought it would take longer than that for the being to die, if it did die as he understood such things. He rose with purpose, his light tan robes fluttering behind him.
It has wisdom to impart to me, but I have not the skill to hear it anymore. I must go to it. Perhaps proximity will help it communicate better. You mean to go to the ship?
Restalon asked. Velen nodded.
I must. Great Prophet, I do not mean to question your wisdom, but you do anyway,
Velen said, laughing, his startling blue eyes crinkling at the corners with genuine good humor.
Continue, my old friend. Your questioning always has value to me.
Restalon sighed.
The orcs have adopted the vessel as their sacred mountain, he said. I know this, Velen replied. Then why antagonize them by venturing there? Restalon asked. They would surely see this as an act of aggression at any time, particularly now. You would be giving them a reason to continue their attacks against us.
Velen nodded.
I have thought of this, thought long and hard on it, but perhaps it is time to reveal who we are and what their sacred mountain is. They believe their ancestors dwell there, and they may very well be right. Kore does not have much longer. Should we not utilize its wisdom and its powers while we can? If anyone or anything can broker peace between the orcs and ourselves, this being, greater far than any of us, has that ability. This may be our only hope. Kore spoke of finding other races, other beings to join in its quest for balance and harmony. To stand against Sargeras and this vast unholy force he has created.
Velen placed a white hand on his friend's armor-plated shoulder.
One thing for certain has been revealed to me in my meditations, and that is that things can no longer continue as they used to. Orc and Draenei can no longer live in distant familiarity with one another. There's no returning to that, my old friend. There is either war or peace. They will either become our allies or our enemies, and I would never forgive myself if I did not explore every avenue to peace I could. Do you understand now?
Restaurant searched Velen's face unhappily, then nodded.
Yes, I suppose I do, but I like it not. At least let me send you with an armored guard, for I know they will attack before they will listen.
Velen shook his head.
No weapons, nothing to provoke them. In their hearts they are honorable beings. I was able to glimpse the souls of the two young orcs who stayed with us a few years ago. There is nothing cowardly or evil in there, only caution, and now for some reason, fear. They attacked hunting parties, not civilians.
Yes, Restaurant shot back, parties that were greatly outnumbered.
We found blood that was not our own spilled at those sites, Velen reminded him. They took the bodies back for ritual burning, but there was orcish blood enough on the soil. And with our knowledge, a handful of Draenei can easily stand against many orcs. No, I will risk all on this. They will not slay me where I stand if I state my intentions honorably, and I come without a blatant ability to defend myself.
I wish I had your confidence, my prophet, said Restaurant resignedly, bowing deeply. I will assemble a small escort party then, and they will not be armed. The Great One, Kil'jaeden, began to visit Ner'zhul with more frequency. First, it was only in the dream state as with the ancestors. He would come in the night, while Ner'zhul slept deeply, his body heavy with the drug that opened his mind to Kil'jaeden's voice, and whisper his praise and congratulations and plans for further orc victory. Ner'zhul was in ecstasy. Each letter that arrived by Bloodhawk from the various clans was read with eagerness and delight. We came across 2 scouts far from aid, the Shattered Hand clan chieftain wrote. It was ease itself to dispatch them, outnumbered as they were. The Bleeding Hollow clan is proud to report to the great Ner'zhul that we have obeyed him in all things, said another letter. We have joined with the Laughing Skull clan, more than doubling the number of armed warriors to send against this devious foe. It is our understanding that the Thunderlord clan seeks allies. We will send a courier to them tomorrow.
Yes, smiled Kil'jaeden. Do you see how they are coming together in a just cause? Before, these clans would be challenging one another if they crossed paths. Now they are sharing knowledge, sharing resources, working as one to overcome a foe who would see you all destroyed.
Ner'zhul nodded, but he felt a sudden pang. It had been glorious to finally behold this beautiful, powerful entity, despite the fact that he looked so much like the hated Draenei, but he had stopped seeing Rokan. He found he missed her. He wondered why she was no longer seeking him out. Hesitantly, he spoke.
Rokan has done her part in bringing you to me, Ner'zhul, soothed Kil'jaeden. You know she is well and happy. You have seen her. We do not need her as an intermediary anymore. Not now that I have been convinced of your worthiness to be my voice among your people.
And as before, Ner'zhul's heart fluttered with joy, but this time, despite the comforting and exciting words of Kil'jaeden, he felt a sad little jerk in his heart as it beat, and still wished he could speak with his mate. Ner'zhul was deep in thought when Gul'dan brought the missive to him. The apprentice bowed and handed his master a piece of parchment, stiff with blue liquid.
What is this? Ner'zhul asked, taking the parchment. It was taken off a Draenei approaching from the south, Gul'dan replied. A party? A single courier. No arms, not even a mount. The fool was walking.
Gul'dan's lips twisted into a smile, and he chuckled. Ner'zhul looked down at the parchment, realizing now that the blue stains were the courier's blood. What had possessed the idiot walking alone, unarmed into the heart of Shadowmoon territory? He unfolded it carefully, trying not to tear it, and quickly began to read. Even as his brown eyes darted over the words, the room was suddenly filled with radiance, and both shaman prostrated themselves.
Read it aloud, great Ner'zhul, came Kil'jaeden's smooth voice. Share it with me and your loyal apprentice. Yes, please, my master, said Gul'dan eagerly.
As he read it for the first time since he had spoken with his beloved Vulcan, Ner'zhul tasted doubt. Unto Ner'zhul, shaman of the Shadowmoon clan, the prophet Velen of the Draenei sends greetings. Recently many of our people have come under attack from the orcs. I do not understand why this is. For generations your people and mine have lived in peace and tolerance, a state that has benefited us both. We have never lifted a weapon toward an orc, and indeed, once we were instrumental in saving the lives of 2 young ones who unwittingly placed themselves in danger.
Ah, Gul'dan interrupted. I remember Duratan, who is currently the Frostwolf chieftain, and Orgrim, Doomhammer.
Ner'zhul nodded absently, his thoughts distracted for a moment, then resumed reading. We can only assume there is a terrible misunderstanding and wish to speak with you so that no more lives, orc or Draenei, are lost in such a tragic fashion. It is my understanding that the mountain you call Oshu'gun is sacred to your people, that this is where the wise spirits of your ancestors dwell. While this place has long had deep meaning for the Draenei as well, we have always respected your decision to claim it as your holy site. However, the time has come for us to recognize that there is more that we share than that divides us. I am called the prophet among my people because at times I am granted wisdom and insight. I seek to lead well and peacefully, as I am sure you and the leaders of the various clans do your own people. Let us meet peaceably at the place that holds so much meaning for both our races. On the 3rd day of the 5th month, I and a small party will be moving in pilgrimage to enter the heart of the mountain. No one in the group will bear arms. I invite you and any others who feel so moved to join me as we enter the deep place of magic and power and ask the wisdom of beings much wiser than we how we can heal this rift between us. In light and blessings, I bid you peace. Gul'dan was the first to speak, or more accurately to laugh.
Such arrogance. My lord, great Kil'jaeden, this is an opportunity not to be missed. Their leader comes like a cleft-hoofed calf to the slaughter, unarmed and stupidly thinking that we know nothing of his evil intentions, and he thinks to violate Oshu'gun. He will die before he sets a vile blue hoof upon even the root of a holy mountain. What you say pleases me, Gul'dan,
Kil'jaeden rumbled in that smooth-as-water voice.
Ner'zhul, your apprentice, speaks wisdom.
But Ner'zhul found words stuck in his throat. He opened his mouth twice to speak, and finally words rasped forth on the 3rd attempt.
I do not disagree that the Draenei are dangerous, he said haltingly, but we are not grown to kill unarmed foes. The courier was slain, Gul'dan pointed out. He was unarmed and even unmounted. And I regret that, Ner'zhul snapped. He should have been taken into custody and brought to me at once, not killed.
Kil'jaeden said nothing. The scarlet radiance bathed Ner'zhul as he continued, groping his way to a solution.
He will not be permitted to defile our sacred place, the shaman continued. Have no worries about that, Gul'dan. But I will not have him killed without having the chance to speak to him. Who knows but that we might learn something? Yes, said Kil'jaeden, his voice rich and warm. When one is in pain, one will reveal all he knows.
The word startled Ner'zhul, but he did not reveal his surprise. This magnificent being wanted him to torture Velen? Something inside him was excited at the prospect, but something else inside him recoiled. Not yet. He would not do such a thing yet.
We will be waiting for him,
he assured both his great lord and his apprentice.
He will not escape. Lord, said Gul'dan slowly, a suggestion, if I may. What is it? The closest clan to the mountain is the Frostwolf clan, Gul'dan pointed out. Let us have them take Velen and his party and bring them to us. Their leader once tasted Draenei hospitality, and although he has not hindered our efforts, I do not recall hearing that he has led any attacks against the Draenei. We shall kill 2 birds with 1 stone, take the Draenei leader captive, and make Duratan of the Frostwolves prove his loyalty to our cause.
Ner'zhul felt 2 pairs of eyes boring into his, the small dark ones of his apprentice and the glowing orbs of his master, Kil'jaeden. What Gul'dan had suggested sounded like wisdom. Then why was Ner'zhul so reluctant to agree? The heartbeats ticked away, and perspiration sprouted on Ner'zhul's low brow. Finally he spoke and was relieved to hear his voice sounded sure and strong.
Agreed. It is a good plan. Find me pen and parchment, and I shall notify Deratan as to his duty.
All right, so we do have the benefactor starting to scare off Ner'zhul. In reality, I believe what happens, and no, it doesn't happen yet, but there is a point in which Ner'zhul sends a letter to Duratan to warn him. In the storyline, that's not happening until Manaroth is already summoned. There is no point when Velen is brought to them. I don't think he would get out. And Duratan certainly doesn't do it. The way the story is being written so far, you're not even made aware that Gul'dan is Kil'jaeden's complete tool and major number one ally the entire time. And I wonder if that's something else that is to develop further, or if that's going to be a big reveal for later. But okay, we have no extreme dire contradictions, just these little subtle kind of different areas where things are not quite sliding, but they still have potential to ultimately get to the same path. We're watching these footsteps, one in front of the other. And that is enjoyable in its own sake, even if they don't paint the same picture that we're seeing from the Chronicles. All right, another episode in the pipes, 5x5. Thank you so much for listening, for your time. And I look forward to seeing you on the next episode of Lore of Warcraft.